So last time we spoke, I showed you guys the initial tests of a Reddit post with a thing that I'm building. And since last week, I thought I was gonna be putting a lot more effort into Reddit, but the business happened, okay? So I've had some things happen in the business which have taught me very good lessons that I want to share with you guys about client management and revision cycles, which actually is perfect for what we're building, okay? If you remember from last time, what we did was I showed you that prior to actually doing anything like one product specific, I just had like this open conversation on Reddit about a couple of products and which one make the most sense to further develop. From there, what won out was going to be this revision tracker, which is just tracking revision requests. And this is ideally for my agencies like my own that do development cycles like custom code and development, or you could also apply this for design, other creative media, and other agencies like that are depending on client requests. Okay, a lot of people use Trello, a lot of people use Jira. I just wanted something super simple with way less ads, way less pressure to upsell and stuff like that, and just a very simple interface for my clients and for myself to stay organized. So I built this out. People seem to like it, and they also are being smart about the fact that I have kind of insider knowledge into what actually is painful, just because I'm living this day to day. But moving into what actually happened with Reddit so far, I posted in both Cursor and then Vibe Coding, pretty much the same thing, just different titles. And in the Cursor one, it significantly outperformed the other one. This one's got 14 comments, and then the other one got 2 comments. Now, overall, basically what people were saying were, kind of what we were talking about, like why build this, why do this? There's Jira, there's Slack, there's Trello, there's all these things. But nonetheless, guys, I think there is a lot of desire for simplification in these tools, right? As part of what I do a lot of automation, which is connecting tools. And that's one form to find simplification, to automate and connect tools so that it feels like everything's talking to one another. But another thing is just to simply have less tools, or to have tools that do less and kind of are less, option focused or variety focused. And so having something, what I would call more so a micro tool or just a micro internal tool, I think would be very useful. And that's what I was trying to kind of just figure out here and how other people think about it. And we had good discussions about Jira, the pros and cons, et cetera, right? It's good to understand the industry standards. It's good to understand what people are out there using. But at the end of the day, if you're solving your own problem, then that's enough. So what we're going to do with Reddit is turn it up to 11.
If you can see,
Yeah.
the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
Okay. And what that means is we're going to go through all these different subthreads. I have subthreads, I don't know, up here, one being build in public, SaaS, micro SaaS with underscore, indie hackers, and side project. Okay. We're going to basically copy and paste, maybe change a couple things in the headlines, but for the most part, keep things consistent and see if we can stir up some more things. And the reason why I chose these was based off of the last ones. As you saw, Cursor outperformed Vibe Coding. So I'm going with ones that are maybe like a bit more technical, a bit more business oriented rather than like a hobbyist. I think that's maybe where the difference was in the audience. So that being said, we're just going to crank this up to 11, and we're just trying to elicit more feedback so that in this stage of the beta, if you will, where there's no subscription, there's no kind of ongoing payment things to worry about or customer service things to worry about. This is all before release, pre-release. We're getting as much information as we can about the people that might actually use this so that if it comes time to offer it for a piece of money, then they can give me that piece of money and they'll be happy to do so. All right. One more pro tip, if you have access to anything like a Discord or a school community or any sort of paid community, those can be great as well. I'm in one called Startup Club. It's a fellow YouTuber, smart guy, and I posted before asking for participants for a beta, and now I'm going to post it again. These can be great because obviously people are very focused on it. Reddit is broad. There's no sort of like entry fee. With clubs like this, there's entry fees, so you have people that are at least somewhat serious, not just making accounts online just to chit chat and stuff like that. So there is that kind of qualified beta information there. But just a pro tip, you don't have to do this. You can still rely on Reddit. All right, so those are the business activities of what we're going to do to kind of move this thing forward. But I do want to talk about what happened this week so that you guys can get an understanding of like behind the scenes of businesses like this and why this actual thing actually came into existence, okay? So I was working with the client that was on a per project basis, right? And it made sense for a lot of things we were doing because there was a set of lead magnets, there was a set of digital products, there was a specific outline of a CRM setup that I've done before. It's kind of more of like a templated structure. But then we moved into a custom coded platform that I made something for them that was more so like a SaaS. And with the SaaS, as you know, you can just add features, and so on and so forth. And I was excited to do it. We were doing it. It was fun. It all fell within the parameters of the initial vague idea as we were kind of carving it out. But the key word there is vague, right? Because it was such a kind of exploratory project for both of us, we didn't have this line in the sand, if you will, of what considered to be done. And as I was figuring these things out, I was being lenient and all that stuff. And so that's a lesson for me. And so one thing to change is just, perspective on that it's a professional matter to be organized in how you scope the boundaries. And also the second thing is to how do you actually do that? Well, I think it comes down to documentation, right? A lot of it comes down to communication of what's on that documentation, but having it just written down somewhere and delivered to the client and to yourself, you guys both have copies of what I'm talking about here just shortly, will make it so that everything is clear. And so basically what this platform here is like a new modern age document, okay? We do have the ability to do things like Google Docs here to give revisions back and forth, but I'm telling you from this week, it can be a little bit messy because this is just lines of text. And every one of these things can be small, medium, large, complex, a complete overhaul, or just a small copy change. And if you just give someone a blank slate to give you all these revisions, naturally they're just going to put as much as they can and then just going to kind of let it flow as if they were writing an essay or writing an article or something like that. That's kind of the idea. Whereas if you have something a bit more structured, and in this case performs the same function as this document here, then this platform, I believe, will be a lot better for everybody. And so with this client, as we moved from a project fee to kind of the end point of that development thing, we reached a point where it was basically deployable and functional, but there was still desire for more features and more changes. Understandable, but at that point I made a decision to move into a retainer model, and we decided to do bi-weekly payments for these revision cycles that I created. Okay, now they're not on this platform just yet, and so we were just talking this through over a phone call, and what happened is that they understood that they were paying for multiple revision cycles where I was quoting them for one, and then we ended up just in a space where we kind of had to come together and find a solution. Now, great client. So regardless of any miscommunication, they believed me that there was nothing malevolent going on. I believed them that they weren't trying to do anything. No one was trying to pull any fast ones on each other. It just happens in business. But that being said, it's just easier to have clarity. And so what I want to do is move from this document where it's just kind of, a free-for-all into this structured thing here, which is going to perform the same function. In addition to that, to make that document there, the revisions document, even less of an issue, you should have yourselves really proper project proposals and proper project offboarding documents, okay? I was doing a project, which is an order status portal, and I wanted to make sure that they were very clear on what the portal does include and does not include. And then also the technical backend, any sort of limitations, as you can see, the headlines are kind of walking them through any different thing that they need to know. And then same thing with the offboarding. We're going to talk about what's been delivered, how to use it, how to test it. Here I'm giving them a 48-hour window to give me anything that happens so I can fix it. And then after that, we will basically end this engagement and then move into revision cycles, okay? So with this client, basically what I'm trying to do with this build is to avoid what happened with the other client, right? And I'd like to get all my clients onto something like this eventually, but the idea is just to have clarity, okay? I said earlier documentation, but it's more so the structure, right? Whether it's a Notion, whether it's a Google Doc or something like this, this tool here, which is my preference, and I hope it's going to be my client's preference, then that's going to protect you. That's going to make it a lot better, a lot simpler, and just a lot more useful. So from this point forward, that kind of put me back a week. So I want to let Reddit cook with these threads here, and I want to post in these communities, and I want to make sure that we get some proper feedback before setting this live out into the broader world. And then we'll talk about marketing in that stage. Obviously, at that point, we're going to have the discussion of whether we want to do free, freemium, paid, or something like that, and even how to handle the authentication. Right now, it's basically if I whitelist somebody, they are allowed into this system. I might make a copy of this and move it into a different thing, but that's to be figured out semi-based on the data that we gather from Reddit, okay? I think I'm going to whip up some of these templates so you guys can have just like the headlines and the structure, and I'll probably put a link in the bio below. It'll be like a Notion or something like that. And then if you guys have any interest in the school, check it out also in the bio. Talk to you later.